Good evening, I am Tomas Guevara, and this is the channel Rewriting the Reality.
As I explained in episode 9, I belong to the Samari family. Our intent is to tell the truth with less distortions. I am subscribed to Psychology Today, and a few hours ago, I received a report, dated July 15, 2023, about consciousness.
Let me tell all of you that I love any kind of challenges. This report was published by Esequiel Morsella, PhD. The report said, I quote, "Consciousness is like a rainbow in that it arises from a particular set of circumstances. For there to be a rainbow, several conditions must be met. Rainbows don't just spring up everywhere. They are not inherent property of matter or of the universe. Rainbows arise from these circumstances and not from just anything."
The same can be said for lasers, audio recording, digestion, memory retrieval, and air conditioning.
These things do not spring from thin air, they stem from physical structures that are configured to instantiate these particular functions, just as the human eye evolved for seeing and the ear evolved for hearing, and eyes can't hear, and ears can't see.
Similarly, in the study of vision, it is well known that some neural circuits are devoted to certain kinds of perceptual analysis, such as edge enhancement, to detect the boundaries of objects, and motion detection, example, the Reichardt detector.
Because of their arrangement, the neurons doing motion detection cannot do memory retrieval or music appreciation, and vice versa.
Consciousness is another achievement of the brain, instantiated by the activities of nerve cells and how they are configured to instantiate this particular cognitive phenomenon.
And this is the mainstream view. Not all circuits in the brain are associated with consciousness, just as not all parts of a car are associated with, say, the navigational system. The circuitry of the car's navigational system is different from that of the transmission.
Consciousness is, somehow, instantiated by neural activities configured to instantiate consciousness.
There is overwhelming evidence that this is the case, as is known by any anesthesiologist.
Not all brain circuits are involved with instantiating consciousness, see review of evidence here. For example, there is overwhelming evidence that the cerebellum, which has more neurons than the cortex, is not responsible for instantiating consciousness. All the neurons in the cerebellum do not do consciousness, see review of evidence here. They are wired in extremely sophisticated ways to do other things. There is something about the arrangement of the neural circuits associated with consciousness that permits them to instantiate this phenomenon, just as there is something about the components of a toaster that make a toaster capable of toasting. A blender cannot toast, and a toaster cannot blend.
Analogously, the neurons involved in the pupillary reflex are not involved in memory retrieval and are not configured to carry out such a process, just as a toaster is not configured to record music, and a television is not configured to make toast. To say that toast emerges from the complexity of a toaster does little to explain how a toaster works. Someone who subscribes to panpsychism would disagree with this view because, according to the panpsychist standpoint, consciousness is a property of all matter. This is not the traditional, mainstream view of the brain.
From this standpoint, consciousness is not an achievement of the brain, it is a freebie provided, somehow, by the universe and its matter. A friend of mine who was a panpsychist explained to me that a doorknob is conscious. I asked if it is conscious in the way that you and I are conscious. He said, no, it is not. I then asked why not, and he replied that it has something to do with our brains. The doorknob has only a kind of proto-consciousness, and we, because of our brain circuitry, have real consciousness. So, the question now becomes, what is special about our brain that allows it to produce real consciousness instead of just proto-consciousness, whatever that might be? My friend confessed that we have simply replaced one mystery with another. Moreover, my friend and I agreed that our new question, What is special about the brain that makes it real conscious is worth solving, and that to solve it, one must investigate not the doorknob but a subset of circuits in the brain. References: Morsella, E. Godwin, C. A. Jantz, T. K. Krieger, S. C. and Gazzoli, 2016.
Homing in on consciousness in the nervous system, an action-based synthesis.
Behavioral and Brain Sciences, Target article 39, 1-17.
Unquote. This is the end of the report. 2 times Mr. Morsella offered evidence.
I decided to check this evidence, and it is a report from the Cambridge University Press of June 22, 2015.
The summary of the report is that consciousness is an enigmatic problem, a problem they call the hard problem, meaning it has not been resolved yet. Now, take a look at what Mr. Morsella told us. That the human eye evolved for seeing and the ear evolved for hearing. This is ridiculous. The human eye was designed to see since the beginning. The same is true for the ear. As far as I know, nobody has ever found a human skeleton without sockets for the eyes. Probably Mr. Morsella believes in Darwin evolution, that at the beginning, there was nothing and all sprung from a primitive soup. Let me tell you, Darwin was wrong.
Dr. Morsella says that what he is trying to convey is known by any anesthesiologist, and that is not evidence at all.
They are not neurosurgeons either.
Then he offered what a friend of him believes, and that also was not evidence. His friend didn't know that the atoms that formed the doorknob are conscious that they are forming the doorknob and not the brain of Mr. Morsella. Probably Mr. Morsella never hears about out-of-body experiences, or OBEs, either. Here are a few. In adulthood, I have had more than 20 out-of-body experiences. All of them were spontaneous. These experiences would start with physical paralysis, then followed by a loud roar in my ears, and intense fear, then, all would become quiet as I moved out through the solar plexus region of my body.
During one experience, there was a glowing female presence with me. She expressed concern about my physical body. I was very thin at the time. She encouraged me to look at what I was doing to my physical vehicle. Darla F., Charleston, South Carolina. Next, I can see all around me and sense the presence of someone approaching me. For some reason, I am attracted to this being. I somehow sense and feel their warm and inviting thoughts. I am fully conscious, like a globe of pure awareness without arms or legs, yet I can move and see in ways I don't understand. I can see all around me and sense the presence of someone approaching me. For some reason, I am attracted to this being. I somehow sense and feel their warm and inviting thoughts. As we move closer to one another, I have an overwhelming need to touch and merge with this being. We seem to melt into one another. Our minds or spirits connect in ways I can't even begin to describe in words. My entire mind and spirit are immersed in endless currents and levels of love. I surrender even more and feel my entire being explode with joy. I am one. Janet M., London, England. Next, one time when I was about 7 or 8, I told my mom in the morning, I had the weirdest dream last night, Dad and I went flying. My mom stopped whatever she was doing and said, "Wait, what did you just say?" She looked so frozen. It turns out that my dad had had the same dream. I still remember holding hands with him and going right out their bedroom window into the night. He remembers the same thing. The difference was that in his dream, his father was flying with us, too. I had never met him because he died when my dad was young. They were really close. George S., Framingham, Massachusetts. Next, I was a sergeant stationed at a fire base in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. During a recon mission, a force of North Vietnamese regulars ambushed my platoon. All hell broke loose, and a mortar exploded near me.
I was knocked unconscious. The next thing I knew, I was watching the firefight from another perspective. I was above it. I could see everything happening as my platoon was overrun. I watched in horror as the enemy soldiers stripped the boots and weapons from my dead friends. Then I saw a young Vietnamese soldier pulling the boots off a body, and I recognized that the body was mine. In a rage, I attacked the soldier with a kick to his head, but my foot went right through his body. I kicked and punched him again and again, and to my amazement, he didn't even notice. At that point, I watched in disbelief as he stripped my body and then joined his men. Moments later, I was back in my body, and I felt a searing pain.
Tom B., Long Beach, California.
Usually, in out-of-body experiences, when you meet another being, what you see is yourself, meaning your essence. There is also much evidence of out-of-body experiences in hospitals during surgery. These experiences prove that we don't need the brain to think, that the mind doesn't reside in the brain. Let me tell you that of course we have an astral body, made of links of consciousness. I explained that psychology needs to be rewritten because the foundations are wrong.
There is nothing unconscious.
Everything we have invented so far is to mimic our consciousness. To learn more about our psychology, please watch the episode number 3, The Self.
Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel.